said Sessions, who appeared uncomfortable with the entire situation. The elder's job became more complicated in July 2016 when Trump was formally named the Republican nominee. The transition team now moved into an office in downtown Washington, D.C. and went looking for people to occupy the top 500 jobs in the federal government. They needed to fill all of the cabinet positions, of course, but also a whole bunch of others that no one in the Trump campaign even knew existed. It's not obvious how you find the next Secretary of State, much less the next Secretary of Transportation. Never mind who should sit on the Board of Trustees of the Barry Goldwater Scholarship and Excellence in Education Foundation. By August, 130 people were showing up every day, and hundreds more working part-time at Trump Transition headquarters at the corner of 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. The transition team made lists of likely candidates for all 500 jobs, plus other lists of informed people to roll into the various federal agencies the day after the election to be briefed on whatever the federal agencies were doing. They gathered the names for these lists by traveling the country and talking to people, Republicans who had served in government, Trump's closest advisors, recent occupants of the jobs that needed filling. Then they set about investigating any candidates for glaring flaws and embarrassing secrets and conflicts of interest. At the end of each week, Christie handed over binders with lists of names of people who might do the job well to Jared and Donald and Eric and the others. They probed everything, says a senior Trump transition official. Who is this person? Where did this person come from? They only ever rejected one person, Paul Manafort's secretary. The first time Donald Trump paid attention to any of this was when he read about it in the newspaper. The story revealed that Trump's very own transition team, led by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, had raised several $1 million to pay for its own staff. The moment he saw it, Trump called Steve Bannon, the chief executive of his campaign, from his office on the 26th floor of the Trump Tower and told him to come immediately to his residence many floors above. Bannon stepped off the elevator to find the governor of New Jersey seated on a sofa, being hollered at. Trump was apoplectic, actually yelling, "You're stealing my money! You're stealing my effing money! What the F is this?" Seeing Bannon, Trump turned on him and screamed, "Why are you letting him steal my effing money?" Bannon and Christie together set out to explain to Trump federal law. Months, and it continues from there. The book is The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away. She is in the light. There's a Jewish tradition that when a Jewish person dies on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, basically that means God waited for the entire year to take them back home. Therefore, they must be a tzaddik, a righteous person. I think that certainly defines Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And now we have Donald Trump figuring out how he can make political hay out of this. He says he's going to nominate a woman. Hey, that worked out well for Joe Biden with regard to a vice presidential candidate. Maybe it'll work out well for him. And he has in particular one woman who is a member of a Catholic cult that says that husbands should control their wives and as opposed to abortion. And he's got another woman who is, fervently Catholic, but also the child of Cuban immigrants and pretty hardcore right wing, but he gets to nominate a woman and a Hispanic to the court. And then there's a couple of other women that he says are on his list. God only knows where this is going to go. But while everybody is focusing on abortion, the Supreme Court, if you look back at the history of the Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court did the last time it was seriously hardcore conservative, which was in the years leading up to 1937, what was referred to as the Lochner Court. It started with this Lochner decision, as I recall, in 1905. And although the Lochner Court is, generally viewed as kind of more or less broadly in that time, it could do massive damage to the entire spectrum of American life. I mean, ever since the 1930s, the Social Security Act was signed, as I recall, in 1935. Literally since that day, Republicans have been trying to destroy Social Security. Donald Trump now says if he's reelected president, that within 3 years, Social Security will be dead because he's going to cut off its funding. And that doesn't seem to be bothering Republicans. I mean, this is just kind of mind-boggling, really. But he might not even have to wait 3 years if he gets a right-wing Supreme Court justice. Because, the Supreme Court could easily say, well, there's nothing in the Constitution that mentions Social Security. Yeah, it does talk about the general welfare, but in fact, several times. But hey, we get to decide what that means. I mean, since the 1960s, Medicare and Medicaid, these two healthcare programs, the Lyndon Johnson and the Democrats, without a single Republican vote, as I recall. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure at the very least, very few Republican votes, Medicare and Medicaid were passed. And Republicans ever since then have been saying that that's socialism. And not only that, right now, this administration, the Trump administration, along with 20 other Republican secretaries of state or attorney generals or governors, I believe it's AGs and governors, have a lawsuit before the Supreme Court that they were supposed to hear this spring. And as a giant wet kiss to Donald Trump, John Roberts said, we'll just postpone hearing this case until after the election. But it's basically, a case that says that Obamacare is wrong. And that one is particularly mind-boggling because if Obamacare gets blown up by this decision, and by the way, it went to the Fifth Circuit Court, that's a Texas judge, a Texas appeals court, said, yes, the entire thing is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional to force insurance companies to pay claims for people who have pre-existing conditions. It's unconstitutional to tell insurance companies that they can't, collude with hospitals to engage in surprise billing of people. It's unconstitutional to tell insurance companies that they can't have higher prices for women than for men. It's unconstitutional to say that insurance companies have to cover kids, even non-dependent kids, until they're 27 years old. All those things, all that stuff in the Affordable Care Act, it's unconstitutional for the government to help pay part of your health expense, your health insurance costs. All of that stuff is unconstitutional. So this lower court blew up literally the entire Affordable Care Act, including the protections for people who have pre-existing conditions. And by the way, we now have several million people in America with COVID, which is now a pre-existing condition. So and this decision, this case is going to be heard by the Supreme Court after the election. And right now there's 8 justices on the court. And even if Roberts joins the liberals, the 3 liberals, Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor, even if Roberts joins them, so it's a 4-4 decision, that means that the court basically doesn't decide, which means that lower court decision, which eliminated Obamacare altogether, including the protections for pre-existing conditions, that ruling will stand. No more Obamacare. But it goes beyond that. I mean, I think that this court could take out Medicare and Medicaid. This court, Republicans, numerous Republicans, Rand Paul's kind of at the forefront of this, but this has become Republican ideology. Of course, David Koch ran for president on this back in the 1980s. End all the minimum wage laws, end long-term unemployment insurance, end the child labor laws. The new excuse that Republicans are using is the old excuse. Well, what about kids who grow up on farms? That was the excuse that they used to say we shouldn't have child labor laws back in the 1930s when the Supreme Court struck down child labor laws. And, now they're at it again. Since the Reagan Revolution, Republicans have systematically torn apart our public schools. The state of Michigan, where Betsy DeVos is from, and where her money has huge political influence, Over half their schools have now been privatized in Michigan. With a conservative court, we could see basically the end of any sort of reasonably functioning public school system nationwide. Are you concerned about climate change? Driving massive fires, storms, hurricanes? A conservative court could rule that any law, or any policy for that matter, designed to reduce carbon emissions are an unlawful violation of refiners and drillers and frackers' constitutional right to do business. With a truly conservative court, and frankly, I think with at least several of these women that Donald Trump is considering, you could lose your right to be protected from being ripped off by a bank. That's the Consumer Protection Bureau. You could lose your right to be protected by government from your insurance company ripping you off. You could lose what few rights you have left to prevent yourself from getting ripped off by your internet service provider or even your utilities if they're for-profit corporations. They could roll back gay marriage and invalidate a whole bunch of marriages all across the United States. They could end altogether the right of labor unions even to exist, take us back to where we were before the passage of the Wagner Act in the early 1930s, the National Labor Relations Act. They could endorse privatization of the post office. I mean, literally all of these are positions that are currently held by various high-profile conservative think tanks and movement leaders, and they all reflect positions that David Koch ran for vice president on in 1980 and that are now embraced by some of these hardcore Republicans, including some currently in Congress. Conservatives don't want to just take America back to the 1950s. They want to take us back to the 1920s. And we need to be telling our Democratic representatives, and particularly in the Senate, because that's where this is all happening. And the number for the Senate is 202-225-3121. We need to tell them, no, stop these guys. Stop the Republicans. Stop them now.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And no more of this Democratic politicians on TV like Tim Kaine this morning. We're just hoping Republicans will behave nicely. They're not going to. And welcome back. Richard in Pacoima, California, listening on KPFK.
That's right.
Hey, Richard, what's up?
What's up is I called last week, Constitution Day was last Thursday, and I asked you about Scalia saying the Constitution is dead. And then afterwards, when we were off the line, I couldn't rebut. You talked about Scalia's talking about it being not a living document.
Right.
And you spoke about Thomas Jefferson agreeing with Jefferson about that. But that's not who to...
No, Scalia and Jefferson were on opposite sides. Jefferson, at length, talked about how every generation should basically reinvent government. He said not to force people to live with the same Constitution for generations would be like asking a man to wear the coat that he wore when he was a child.
Yes, but what I was talking about was whether or not it's the one that we have is a living document. And the person to ask there is James Madison, who wrote the thing, and he said, speaking just of the necessary and proper clause, he said, without that clause, this is a dead letter. That's a quote. So it's a living document, whatever Scalia says. Now the question is, what do we need to do about this, that they're just not doing constitutional stuff? Do you not think it's time for something in the 21st century, not something from 1790?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to mail something to Mark Pocan, and maybe we can have this conversation Wednesday, and I really appreciate being able to have it with you right now.
Okay. You're welcome, Richard. Thank you very much for the call. George in Santee, California. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. My question is there anything on the left that would be the equivalent of the Federalist Society?
No, not to the best of my knowledge. There is no organization that has millions of dollars of funding, that meets multiple times every year, that has a network of judges and lawyers all over the country. You have there's the American Bar Association, which is sort of the old standard. And then there's another bar association or another association of lawyers that is mostly made up of trial lawyers that is pretty progressive. And I'm sorry, I forget the name of them. But they have virtually no political influence. I mean, they may involve themselves in a few races here and there, but no, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing like the Federalist Society on the left. And George, I think what it's going to take is to come up with something like that. There's entire structures on the right that we have nothing like. You've got the Mercatus Center at George Washington University. You've got the Heritage Foundation. You've got what used to be it's called the Cato Institute now. It used to be called the Charles Koch Foundation. There's a bunch of organizations on the right. The Competitive Enterprise Institute. On and on it goes. For which there's no parallel on the left, and the reason why is because there are not as many billionaires on the right, or as many well-endowed foundations on the right, on the left, that are willing to fund these things. All the billionaires who are interested in their own self-interest, basically, are ones on the right. We'll be right back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly. Remember the Boston Tea Party? To the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the fourth in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag, you're it. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. So how has this kind of thing played out in the past? Mitch McConnell is playing hardball politics. And, it shouldn't surprise any of us. He is in a minority. He represents a party that represents less than half of America, and yet it controls the United States Senate. Fewer than half of the votes in the last election went either to Republicans in either the House or the Senate. Donald Trump lost the presidential vote by 3 million votes. So all three of those, of the two branches, the three pieces, the House, the Senate, and the White House, all of them, more people voted for Democrats in the 2016 election, the 2018 election, than voted for Republicans. And frankly, that's been the case for a long time. The last Republican president who was initially elected by a majority of the people in the United States was George Herbert Walker Bush in 1988. But what else has been done? Well, you have 4 Republican presidents specifically to maintain control of the Senate, have on 4 different occasions, well, 3 occasions, they've added 4 states. The first, back in the day, in the time of the American Civil War, it took 125,000 people to be able to, for Congress, it was the broad threshold. It was basically the threshold for 1 congressional seat. And it took 125,000 people to say, oh, this is a state. This territory has enough people to become a state. But right after the Civil War, or actually during the Civil War, it was 1864, Abraham Lincoln said, we're going to make Nevada a state, because Nevada was all Republicans. There were only 7,000 people in Nevada. Then a few years later, after the end of the Civil War, you had President Ulysses Grant, and he said, let's make Colorado a state. Now, at that time, Colorado had, let me see here. Hang on just a second. I got it written down here. Someplace. Anyway, Colorado had, as I recall, in the neighborhood of 30,000 people, more or less. And yet they expanded Colorado. And then you had Benjamin Harrison, who, by the way, didn't win the popular vote. And he said, let's... Amazing. Apparently I don't have... Oh, here we go, packing the Senate. Benjamin Harrison, he said back then, North Dakota had a population of 36,000, South Dakota had a population of 98,000. It still took 125,000 people to make a state, but he said, let's split it into 2 states, North Dakota and South Dakota, and that way we'll get 4 Republican senators. So that was in 1888. You had Abraham Lincoln doing this in 1864. You had Ulysses S. Grant doing it in 1876. So in that period of time, as a result of this, thus in roughly 40 years, the Republicans added 8 Republican senators, which cemented their control of the Senate until the Great Depression, frankly. From Lincoln's inauguration in 1861 until FDR's inauguration in 1933, Democrats only controlled the Senate for 8 years. Because of this. Well, we can add Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico as states if we get control of the White House and the Senate and keep control of the House. As a starting point. We can also pack the court. When John Adams lost the election of 1800, during that period, back then it was November until March, was the period between the time of the election and the time that the new president was sworn in. They changed that after FDR was sworn in to be November to January. But during that period of time, lame duck President John Adams and the lame duck Federalist Congress passed the Judiciary Act of 1801, which cut the size of the Supreme Court from 6 members down to 5, so that Thomas Jefferson couldn't put anybody on the court. They also created 16 new federal judgeships, and Adams tried to fill them. Now, Jefferson and his Democrats, the Democratic Republicans they were called back then, we call it the Democratic Party today, overcame that in 1802. But, there it was. In 1866 and 1869, Republicans in the House passed, Andrew Johnson became president. And there had already been a guy who had died just before Andrew Johnson became president in 1865. And so Republicans passed legislation to reduce the number of members of the court from 10 down to 7 so that Andrew Johnson couldn't replace anybody. When Ulysses S. Grant came in as president, a good Republican, they expanded the court back up to 9, which is where it is today. So there's a lot that can be done. It's just going to take some political will.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Stick around. Well, we're getting closer to hitting our goal. Hopefully we'll hit it before the end of this week because this is the last week of the fund drive. It's Monday. That goal that we're talking about is the one that will unlock Andrew from San Diego's $10,000 match. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help us knock this one out of the park in the final week of the fall pledge drive. We're moving along well. I mean, we're not hitting the levels that we would if it wasn't, the political season. We all know that. We started with a fairly modest goal, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do need, though, some substantial help. I think we're about $80,000 down for this week. So that's what we've got to get, and we need your help to get it. And every $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, every contribution, regardless of size, is going to get us closer to hitting that goal that will then unlock Andrew's $10,000 donation. Also, our friend Mike from San Francisco is covering all the hard costs of this fundraising drive. So, typically, if you give $100, a few dollars of that goes to cover the 800 numbers and the database and all that kind of junk, credit card processing fees. Mike has covered all that. So if you give $100 today, $100 goes to Free Speech TV, every single penny. Plus, it might be doubled by Mike if we can hit our goal at the end of the week. So call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs you. And, isn't it a fine thing that we have this television network? It is just an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV needs you, so please call now. With a $20 gift, you can get your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. There's a story to that, by the way, to that bumper sticker. A fellow by the name of Caleb here in town, here in Portland, back when we were doing the show locally on KPOJ, was listening to the show one day, and I don't know if he makes bumper stickers or just knows how to make them, or if he has a print company. I'm not frankly sure. But he sent me a note saying, would you like some bumper stickers? And I said, sure, why not? And he designed them, he wrote them, he came up with them. They're so cool, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. I love it. And we've had a big box of them ever since. And, at fund drives, we give away a few. And it's basically the only way to get them is to donate to Free Speech TV now. So that's the bumper sticker, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Then there's also the sticker that Free Speech TV came up with, which is Fight for Democracy, or your very own set of 3 stainless steel straws. And it occurred to me, I've ordered some of these straws. I'm looking forward to their arriving because, for example, here when the smoke has been so bad, the air is so bad that I've had to wear a mask indoors. But the same, I think, the situation would be the same if I was going to a restaurant. They say taking that mask off is the thing that increases the risk, where they're finding that eating in a restaurant substantially increases your chances of picking up COVID. Well, if I wore my mask, and not for eating, but for drinking, if I just went in to have a smoothie or something like that, or some iced tea, can I stick the straw up under the corner of the mask? I think so. They don't make masks with holes in them. You wouldn't want that, but anyhow, 3 stainless steel straws. That's all with a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover. There is the Free Speech TV tote bag, your choice, one of these 3 things. The tote bag, this is with a $50 gift, or the postcard pack, Fight for Democracy. We were talking on the show last Friday about people, using the post office, right? Sending notes to each other, sending cards to each other. My friend Alex, who sent me a letter, it's like, oh, how cool is this, right? So there you go, the postcard pack. With the $75 gift, you've got the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Or you can get the Free Speech TV hat, the hat with the Free Speech TV logo. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks, really nice high-quality face masks about what can we grow from crisis. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of one of 4 things, either the T-shirt that says "Ask Me About Free Speech TV," or your choice of one of 3 books, including 2 that I wrote, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, which is really about this moment, or The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, which is really about the last 40 years and the next 40 years going forward. and what we can do. And then, of course, there's also Greg Palast's book, How Trump Stole 2020. If you don't have a copy of that, you can get that for a $120 gift to Free Speech TV. With a $240 gift, we've got 2 virtual meet and greets coming up, one in October on the 14th, one in November on the 18th, where we will get together on Zoom. It'll be off the record, no recording, it won't be on the air, and so, you might even hear me use a 4-letter word. We'll have fun. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Fall Box with the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Democracy sticker, the Free Speech TV tote bag, the Democracy postcards, and my book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And with a $1,000 gift, you can get in line to come here to Portland and see how we make the magic happen. So those are the premiums. Most important, help us out now. We got to hit this goal, unlock that $10,000 gift, and make it all happen. Make it all work. Call now, 877-378. On this week's Science Revolution, how Trump's new herd mentality strategy could kill 6 million Americans and destroy our economy. Trump doesn't know how to run a business, so we shouldn't be surprised that he doesn't know how to run a country. His latest failure, tragically, is the United States of America. Economist Richard Wolff and Dr. Justin Frank drop by on all this. Plus, Dr. Gary Yo is here on the apocalyptic wildfires and climate warming. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a few other things on the fascism watch, as it were. Bill Barr, yesterday, the Justice Department said, basically that New York City, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington are, quote, anarchist jurisdictions. And they have directed the federal government to look at ways to cut funding to these cities. Now, New York City, for example, receives about $7 billion a year in federal funds. They send a hell of a lot more than that to the federal government in the form of taxes. But what they get back, Bill Barr and Donald Trump want to start cutting. Bill Barr said, quote, "We cannot allow federal tax dollars to be wasted when the safety of the citizenry hangs in the balance." Really. So if our cities, Ted Wheeler, the mayor here in Portland, said, we're not going to use tear gas. No tear gas here in Portland. And so, if you're not going to use police state tactics, according to Bill Barr, you're not going to get federal money. It goes on, it gets even worse. In a conference call with U.S. attorneys across the country last week, Bill Barr encouraged prosecutors to seek a number of federal charges, including the rarely used sedition law. Rarely used is kind of an overstatement, or an understatement, rather. I believe the last time the sedition law was used was during the John Adams presidency. I might be wrong, but this is amazing. And clearly, the purpose of this is not to put people in jail just for sedition. It's to scare people from protesting. I mean, you may, if you're charged with a federal crime, even if you don't go to jail, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to hire lawyers. It's going to turn your life upside down for years, or up to years. It can be and it can completely screw up your chances of ever getting certain types of jobs. I mean, there's all kinds of punishments, essentially, that go with this, even if you don't end up in jail or paying fines. This is what Bill Barr said in an NBC News interview. He said, they are organized. They have websites. Anyone who spent a moment at these things and heard their chants and what they're calling for can see right away that they say they are revolutionaries. This is a revolution. He's not talking about the right-wing groups who are openly calling for civil war. He's talking about left-wing groups who are asking the police stop killing black people and that we have a nation of rights under the law. Meanwhile, in Dallas, the Dallas Independent School District is apologizing now because a teacher passed out an assignment to that teacher's students asking them to write about a modern hero of our age. A modern age hero. The list of potential people that you could choose from included Mahatma Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Malcolm X, George Floyd, and Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who murdered 2 people and blew the arm off a third in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the vigilante, the right-wing vigilante. Yes, a hero for our time. And Donald Trump is out here saying that when Ali Velshi, who was at a totally peaceful demonstration, there was no violence, there was no property destruction, people walking down the street, marching and protesting, an activity that is protected by the First Amendment, so protected by the First Amendment that back in the 1960s, the Supreme Court said that even if it was a group of Nazis with swastikas marching through a neighborhood in Chicago that was largely occupied, keep in mind this was the 50s and 60s, that was largely occupied by survivors of the Holocaust in Germany, Jewish survivors of the Holocaust. Even then, that is protected speech. That's what the Supreme Court said. But now, Donald Trump is saying, hey, a journalist who gets shot by a rubber-coated or a plastic-coated steel bullet by police during a 100% peaceful demonstration, he says, it's the most beautiful thing. It's called law and order. He's making fun of Ali Velshi. He's going, oh, he got hit in the knee. He goes, oh, my knee, oh, my knee. I mean, this is how fascists talk. This is how Mussolini used to talk. And then he goes off on jeans. This was in Minnesota over the weekend. Donald Trump. Minnesota's 84% white. And the immigrants in the Minneapolis area are by and large from Somalia. Omar Ilhan is one of them. And they are black. So Trump goes to Minnesota and he says, and I quote, you have good genes. You know that, right? You have good genes. A lot of it is about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? The racehorse theory? You think you're so different? You have good genes in Minnesota. And then he goes on talking about the black refugees in Minnesota. He says, are you having a good time with your refugees? And then he says, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. Now, Omar, as I recall, is the only one of the 3 who wears a hijab, you know, the head covering as part of her clothing. But Trump says, maybe they should be prosecuted for buying dresses. We'll prosecute them. Yeah, why not? And the crowd goes nuts. And then he praised Robert E. Lee. Yeah, the guy who led the insurrection against the United States. Meanwhile, in Virginia, MAGA supporters were blocking a polling place entrance. It's like, we've fallen through the rabbit hole. It's amazing. Kevin in Durham, North Carolina. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. So,
hey.
Losing RGB is something that I feared for a while, and now that she's gone, I really hope people get it now. I really hope people get just how important it is to vote and stop engaging in these purity tests. And, Biden this and, this candidate and check off everything on my wish list because, you're in a position now where you're going to lose everything on your wish list and even more. Yeah. And, if you think you're going to... I
agree, Kevin. I periodically see on some of these message boards, people hating on Susan Sarandon or Bernie Sanders or whatever. There is no purity test going on this year. It's like, save your damn breath. It's like there may be people who don't realize how high the stakes are. They're just listening to music radio all day long or whatever. But I've not heard... outside of the obvious trolls, we've actually been able to identify a couple of them as, paid Republican operatives who call into this program and go, I don't know, Joe Biden's just not good enough for me. Outside of that, there is no movement like that on the Democratic side, Kevin. So,
I just hope that's the case because, you're in a position now where, you're if you think you're going to shame Mitch McConnell and these Republicans by pointing out the blatant hypocrisy of what they're doing, you can forget about it. These guys are about power, and they don't care what you think. They're going to do what they're going to do. So
Yep.
wake up, understand what the stakes are, because it's all on the table now. Healthcare, labor rights, voting rights, civil rights, the environment, maybe even Roe v. Wade. It's all on the table.
Yeah. And get over to iwillvote.com, which is the new website that has been put up by the DNC that gives you immediate access to the portals for every Secretary of State in the country so that you can double check your registration. And if it's still possible, if it's still within the window, depending on your state, if you're not registered to vote, you still can. Kevin, spot on. Thank you for the call. Kim in West Palm Beach, Florida. Hey, Kim, thanks for listening to Sirius XM. What's up?
How you doing? As of September 12th, the entire Department of Defense that has about 2 million employees no longer contribute to the OASDI. We were not given a
To
choice.
Social Security and Medicare, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had no choice in the matter. We may not have to pay it all back at once. We're not really sure. But that's 2 million people not contributing to the pot. And this is the end of Social Security. I believe it is.
Well, it depends on the outcome of the election, because I guarantee you, if Joe Biden gets elected, he will reverse and change that. But you're right. Donald Trump has said, number one, right now, the way the law is right now, because this is just an executive order that will expire, basically those 2 million people in the military, I don't think there's any corporations that have taken him up on this, because it's just an accounting nightmare. But the military is saying, hey, you just got a $10 a week raise in your paycheck,
Right.
And by the way, at the end of the year, you're going to have to pay back a few $100 because that really wasn't a raise, it was a loan
Right.
from your Social Security
Yeah.
payment. But Trump has said that if he gets reelected, he's going to make it permanent, which means that within 3 years, the Social Security Trust Fund is wiped out and Social Security gets privatized or destroyed. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kim.
Yep, but according to his ads, Biden's the one that's going to ruin everything. He's supposedly saving it, and people don't know. I have told people everywhere. Everybody I see, I tell them this is what's happening, and they're just in disbelief. They don't believe that it's actually happening.
Yeah, no, it actually is happening. Donald Trump is destroying Social Security right in front of us, and he's bragging about it. And at his rallies, the people are just like, yeah, that's cool, yeah. Kim, thank you very much for the call. It's real testimonial to the pathetic state of these maggots.
Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Judy in Sun Lakes, Arizona. Hey, Judy, what's on your mind today?
Hi there, Tom. The reason I'm calling is that my feeling is that if we don't have the presidency in both the House and the Senate, and or if we don't have the Senate and we lose the presidency and just maintain the House, I think in general that we need to. There needs to be a plan among Democrats way smarter than me for a plan for gradual or quick or whatever secession plan. That there be an American Democracy Union, and because this country, actually, there's a book that recently came out by Richard Kreiner called "Break It Up." You'll actually like this title. It's "Secession, Division, and the Secret History of America's Imperfect Union," where he goes into the history of the various secession movements and essentially how the country has always been divided in various ways. I don't think that the Republicans, as they are, the Trump Republicans, as they are now, can be brought along at all. I think the Confederacy, in whatever form it is now, is alive and well. They don't want to live with us. We don't want to live under their rules. I think a plan, and actually Craner, I've heard him in some interviews. I mean, he seems to feel that this is kind of like the closest we've come. I mean, he sort of sees whether it's that the western states initially start doing it, or the northeastern states start doing it. Essentially breaking away from the quote unquote federal government as it is under the Republicans and start doing their own thing. But I think there needs to be serious thoughts along those lines, because there are Americans that want to live under a democracy and those who don't seem to care.
Right. I get it, Judy. That is the most extreme, end of a whole wide range of possibilities. And the reason that I don't discuss it or advocate it, frankly, although I did write an op-ed maybe 6 months ago suggesting that if all else fails, the western states and the northeastern states should consider a compact. But then, in fact, I talked about it on this program, and then I get calls from Minnesota and Wisconsin going, "Hey, what about us?" And that's the problem.
They can join.
Right. I mean, basically that's the problem. The problem isn't that half of America has gone nuts. The problem is about a third of America has gone nuts, but they control so much power because of the way that the Senate is configured. The Senate, Republicans in the Senate represent millions fewer Americans than do Democrats, even though Democrats don't control the Senate. And this is because of the low population states like Wyoming. Now I get it, Vermont's one too, but by and large, the low population states are Republican states. And, where is this going to go? I mean, this is, if a state or a region were to secede, that could lead to a shooting war. I mean, it did once before. It did in 1861. So
I actually just disagree that it would necessarily lead to shooting, because I think those who are against would be happy to be separated from those who are for.
Yeah, I'll have to check out the book. Judy, thank you for the call. Thank you. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly, remember the Boston Tea Party, to the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the fourth in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag you're it. .com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, discussing what's going on in the world today. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's up?
Hello, Mr. Hartmann. How are you?
I am saddened, but otherwise well.
I am too, and that's what I wanted to mention to you. Of all of the political earthquakes that we've had in the United States this year, this is the one that's really freaked me out. Donald Trump, and I don't know if the folks are aware of this, I'm not sure, but I think he's had more Supreme Court appointments in a first term than any other president. And, people are various pundits are saying that if he gets this nomination that he's about to put up, that will make the court a 6-3 court. I beg to differ, Tom. I think it's already a 6-3 court. I think his nominee will make it a 7-2 court, and I'm talking particularly about Judge Breyer, who tends to kind of
who is, by the way, 73 years old, I think.
Yes, sir. And that leads me to the second point, Tom. I believe especially Uncle Clarence Thomas I believe, and he's a real.
He's gonna resign. I predict if Trump doesn't get reelected, Thomas is going to resign and let Trump replace him too.
I absolutely agree. You took the words out of my mouth, and then I had a question for you. And I know that it's easy to kind of do Monday morning quarterbacking, but here's my question to you: when Justice Ginsburg, first started taking ill and dealing with these various physical maladies, Barack Obama, she was in her early 80s, was still the president. Can you give me some insight or any thoughts you have as to why she didn't resign at that time, why she took that gamble?
Yeah, she fully expected that Hillary Clinton was going to win, as did 99% of the rest of America. And she wanted to be she wanted her replacement to be the first woman justice appointed by a woman president. And that was a big deal to her. And she talked to, people about that at the time. And, there was some discussion about that in the press, in fact, back at the time. And, it didn't work out the way she expected, and she couldn't hang on for 4 years. It was what looked like a safe bet that turned out to be a bad bet.
I see. Well, I'm I don't know that, I read a study some time ago that the average American couldn't name 2 Supreme Court justices. And, unless you're some kind of nerd like I am, can name all 9 in their judicial temperament. I don't know if people realize that that is the most powerful entity in the triumvirate of government in this country, Tom. At least I think so.
It is, as long as Congress refuses to use its Article 3, Section 2 capability. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, that's why the Federalist Society was created in the 1970s, and they're now pulling the strings and calling the tune. And yeah, absolutely. Kenyatta, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Spot on. Barbara in Bristol, Connecticut. Hey, Barbara, what's up?
Tom, I was wondering how you felt that Harry Reid's nuclear option in the last term of President Obama's is playing a huge role in this, too. I mean, they don't need a supermajority. They don't need cloture anymore. Harry started that, and you consider that like a tit for tat, like they did, we did it.
Well, what had happened, Barbara, was that in the last couple of years of the Obama administration, Mitch McConnell was refusing to allow any.
Yeah,
well,
I know
actually, when Harry Reid was running things, Mitch McConnell was filibustering every single judicial appointment because he didn't want a single judge to go through on Obama's watch. And Harry Reid said, okay, we're going to blow up the filibuster for lower court appointments. And then it was the Republicans who blew up. Wasn't it Mitch McConnell who blew up the filibuster for the Supreme Court itself because of the situation with Merrick Garland and ultimately Brett Kavanaugh? That's my recollection.
Right, but I mean, they do not need a supermajority now to pass anybody. It's a simple majority, 50+1, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
And so you don't
in
think
fact,
that was
they couldn't have gotten either Gorsuch or Kavanaugh on if the filibuster had still been intact.
Correct. But you don't feel that they just looked at what Harry Reid did and said, well, now we're going to do it for the top judges. For SCOTUS
yes,
also.
and I think, frankly, if the Democrats take the House, the Senate, and the White House, that they will and should blow up the filibuster on everything.
Absolutely.
The filibuster was, it goes back to the days of slavery. I mean, it was particularly enthusiastically embraced in the era of Jim Crow as a way of slowing down progress, basically.
Right. I'm also for them expanding the court.
Yeah, me too. And this is what FDR threatened in 1937, and frankly, they should be doing it. You've had twice now. The size of the court has been changed by Republicans to prevent a Democratic president from being able to nominate a Supreme Court justice. In 1801, they weren't Republicans then; they were Federalists, but they did that during the John Adams lame duck period. And then in 1860, whatever it was, 67, I think it was, or 66, they did it so that Andrew Johnson couldn't nominate a presidential or nominate a Supreme Court justice. I think that Congress should be doing it again. Barbara, thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
There's a general
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company. More information at carshield.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Boll and Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at Boll, B-O-L-L, and branch.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, T-E-E-F, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!
Well, we're getting closer to hitting our goal. Hopefully we'll hit it before the end of this week because this is the last week of the fund drive. It's Monday. That goal that we're talking about is the one that will unlock Andrew from San Diego's $10,000 match. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help us knock this one out of the park in the final week of the fall pledge drive. We're moving along well. I mean, we're not hitting the levels that we would if it wasn't, the political season. We all know that. We started with a fairly modest goal, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do need, though, some substantial help. I think we're about $80,000 down for this week. So that's what we've got to get, and we need your help to get it. And every $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, every contribution, regardless of size, is going to get us closer to hitting that goal that will then unlock Andrew's $10,000 donation. Also, our friend Mike from San Francisco is covering all the hard costs of this fundraising drive. So, typically, if you give $100, a few dollars of that goes to cover the 800 numbers in the database and all that kind of junk, credit card processing fees. Mike has covered all that. So if you give $100 today, $100 goes to Free Speech TV, every single penny. Plus, it might be doubled by Mike if we can hit our goal at the end of the week. So call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs you. And, isn't it a fine thing that we have this television network? It is just an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV needs you, so please call now. With a $20 gift, you can get your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. There's a story to that, by the way, to that bumper sticker. A fellow by the name of Caleb here in town, here in Portland, back when we were doing the show locally on KPOJ, was listening to the show one day, and I don't know if he makes bumper stickers or just knows how to make them, or if he has a print company. I'm not frankly sure. But he sent me a note saying, would you like some bumper stickers? And I said, sure, why not? And he designed them, he wrote them, he came up with them. They're so cool, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. I love it. And we've had a big box of them ever since. And, at fund drives, we give away a few. And And it's basically the only way to get them is to donate to Free Speech TV now. So that's the bumper sticker, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Then there's also the sticker that Free Speech TV came up with, which is Fight for Democracy, or your very own set of 3 stainless steel straws. And it occurred to me, I've ordered some of these straws. I'm looking forward to their arriving because, like, for example, here when the smoke has been so bad, the air is so bad that I've had to wear a mask indoors. But the same, I think, the situation would be the same if I was going to a restaurant. They say taking that mask off is the thing that increases the risk, where they're finding that eating in a restaurant substantially increases your chances of picking up COVID. Well, if I wore my mask, and not for eating, but for drinking, if I just went in to have a smoothie or something like that, or some iced tea, can I stick the straw up under the corner of the mask? I think so. They don't make masks with holes in them. I mean, you wouldn't want that, but anyhow, 3 stainless steel straw. That's all with a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover. There is the Free Speech TV tote bag, your choice, one of these 3 things. The tote bag, this is with a $50 gift, or the postcard pack, Fight for Democracy. We were talking on the show last Friday about people, using the post office, right? Sending notes to each other, sending cards to each other. My friend Alex, who sent me a letter, it's like, oh, how cool is this, right? So there you go, the postcard pack. With the $75 gift, you've got the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Or you can get the Free Speech TV hat, the hat with the Free Speech TV logo. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks, really nice, high-quality face masks about what can we grow from crisis. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of one of 4 things: either the T-shirt that says "Ask Me About Free Speech TV," or your choice of one of 3 books, including 2 that I wrote: The Hidden History of the War on Voting, which is really about this moment, or The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, which is really about the last 40 years and the next 40 years going forward and what we can do. And then, of course, there's also Greg Palast's book, How Trump Stole 2020. If you don't have a copy of that, you can get that for a $120 gift to Free Speech TV. With a $240 gift, we've got 2 virtual meet and greets coming up, one in October on the 14th, one in November on the 18th, where we will get together on Zoom. It'll be off the record, no recording, it won't be on the air, and so, you might even hear me use a 4-letter word. We'll have fun. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Fall Box with the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Democracy sticker, the Free Speech TV tote bag, the Democracy postcards, and my book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And with a $1,000 gift, you can get in line to come here to Portland and see how we make the magic happen. So those are the premiums. Most important, help us out now. We got to hit this goal, unlock that $10,000 gift, and make it all happen. Make it all work. Call now, 877-378.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. An old friend and colleague of mine from Air America days and other events over the years, Laura Flanders, now has a new show on PBS stations nationwide. She's the host of Grit TV, contributor to Nation magazine, the author of 6 books, including Blue Grit, True Democrats Take Back Politics and the Politicians. LauraFlanders.org is her website, and her Twitter handle is The LF Show or Grit Laura. Laura, welcome back to the program. It's been a long time since we've talked. Congratulations on your new show.
It's been too long. I'm so happy to hear you, to be with you. And yeah, isn't it exciting? We finally made it onto public television.
I think that's spectacular. I think it's absolutely spectacular. Before we get to your program, I'm curious your thoughts on this particular political moment and how you think Democrats should be playing this out. We heard Tim Kaine this morning on MSNBC saying, basically, I'm just going to try to appeal to Republicans' better side. I'm not sure they have a better side.
Well, you know what I think. You know what I think about that, Tom. You know, I mean, let's face it. You started the morning. I listened to you talking a little bit about, you know, patriarchy and capitalism and the intersection of the two in relation to Harriet Tubman. And of course, I'm thinking about that in relation to Ruth Bader Ginsburg this morning. And the day is one of those days where you either really do look at that glass half full or you really do look at the half empty. I think the Democratic campaign is barely, well, I hate to say this, I won't say what I was going to say, but what I was going to say was something along the lines of doesn't deserve our attention. What does deserve our attention is all of the other organizing that people are doing all across the country. And Friday was one of those days where you saw early voting begin in several states and people lining up for hours to vote. You saw in Virginia, apparently, a mob reminiscent of the Stop the Count, vote count mob in Florida in 2000, which you and I remember well, trying to intimidate voters, it seemed like. I don't know what their intentions were, but it certainly looked like it to me from the TV. And yet people are standing there, they're in their masks, they're showing up. And that's been the story of this whole summer, hasn't it? I mean, this whole year. In a period of social distancing, people have come together, for the most part, looking after each other as they demanded change. And whether the Democratic Party is up to this moment, meaning mobilizing people to do that or not, I think what we've seen people learn over the many years that you and I have been doing this work is nobody's waiting for the Democratic Party's say-so. They are out there organized and doing their work. I just picked up a yard sign from someone around here who got so tired of not having any yard signs in this rural and small town place that I'm living. He just went out and made his own, you know, and now he's taking a contribution for people that want it. So it's one of those days where, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they say, you know, you can't be what you can't see. And it's just not true. People are constantly setting out to be what they cannot see. You know, Harriet Tubman did it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg did it. And I think people are doing it. They're setting out to make this a democratic election against all the odds. And it's exciting as well as kind of bracing.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I read a piece a while back about community policing that I thought you had written. Am I misremembering that? Did you do a deep dive into community policing?
We did a little bit. I mean, we did a TV show on the subject, and we've linked a bunch of good articles. The show that we did is airing right now. It started last night. So just so people can be clear, we premiere every Sunday at 11:30 on PBS World, which goes out to about 200 stations around the country. And then we're nationally syndicated on public television stations throughout the week. You can find out what your local station is at our website. Thanks for mentioning it, lauraflanders.org. And you can also watch the show anytime you want, and any of the shows we've done at our YouTube channel, which is also the Laura Flanders Show. But the show that's airing this week, that premiered yesterday, is about something called the Newark Community Street Team that came together at the initiative of the mayor, Raz Baraka, who brought in a peacekeeper from the, you know, gang wars of L.A. To develop a community organization led by people who've been, quote unquote, on the wrong side of the law, which is to say the police, people who have spent lots of time inside, many of them, are now working together to determine how a good portion of the public safety budget of that South Ward of Newark, New Jersey is spent. And our show was about how fascinating it is that you find people in the police department and the public safety officer and people in the community who have no reason to be feeling warmly about cops, figuring out how to work together. Well, I say in an understatement of the year, I think, that it's not easy for the police and the policed to collaborate, but they're doing it. And in this year, we saw less violence against people or property in Newark, even during the mobilizations and the reaction to the police killings of this year. Less violence in Newark than almost any other major city, especially given the history that Newark has in people's minds. So it's an inspiring story. I encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, and I've told this story on this program before that back in, I think it was 96 was the year the Olympics came to Atlanta. Louise and I were living in Atlanta, and I was writing a series of novels about a private detective, and a friend of mine was an old police chief, a small-town Georgia police chief, and there was not enough security for the Olympics, and so the Georgia Police Academy had opened up the academy for people who wanted to become private detectives, which was the legal rubric that they could use at that time so that they could legally provide security for the Olympics. And I ran through that course. And it was like 6 or 8 weeks, and we lived down there in this little town in Georgia at the police academy. And my sense of it, and I was interacting with all these guys who were just running through the police academy, most of them to become state police, although a lot of small town police forces use it. My sense of it was that about a third of the people that I met there were just decent, average people looking for a job that had a pension where they could retire after 25 years. About a third of them were people who were really Dudley Do-Rights. They really believed in what they were doing. They wanted to make a better world. And about a third of them were complete fascist asses. In fact, one of them beat me up pretty badly when we were practicing, in quotes, hand-to-hand combat. And I'm hopeful that these kinds of policies, like programs like you're talking about, can kind of filter out that last third and raise up those first two-thirds. What's your sense of that?
Well, look at the things you need. I mean, we need law, right? So you need to have some barriers, some boundaries within which our police forces, our public safety operators operate. So there's no question. We need litigation that says certain kind of behavior is unacceptable in our police force. You need in public engagement, I think, when it comes to what the job of the so-called public safety officers is. I mean, on our show, Akila Sherrills, who heads up this team, he says, we redefine safety. Well, we define safety as having enough food to eat, a place to live, and, a way to make a living at a livable standard for you and your family. So that is already not just about policing. That's already about investing in communities, supporting local businesses, supporting small business in an era of Amazon. I heard you talking about Amazon. So we're already going outside the police department, and I think that's the call of many of the movement for Black Lives activists, Black Lives Matter. When they talk about defund the police, sure, I think many of them are saying, what would we do if we didn't just call 911, if we didn't take a punitive approach to everything wrong in society? And I think they're getting at that with that slogan. But they're also saying concretely, let's look at these budgets. Where are the funds actually going to and coming from? And so that's two things. So we need laws. We need budgets that apportion responsibility appropriately and resources appropriately. Don't leave it all in the hands of the cops. And then, absolutely, what you're talking about, we need leadership that hones out the people that shouldn't be in that job.
Amen. And Laura, thanks so much for dropping. But we hit a hard break here at 15 after. I'm sorry. It's the Laura Flanders Show on PBS stations nationwide. You can see it all at lauraflanders.org. Laura, good luck. Keep in touch.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Absolutely. See you again soon.
Great. Yeah, indeed. Great talking with you. It's been too long. Laura Flanders, the great Laura Flanders.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Tom in Kintersville, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. Oh, by the way, Tom, let me just mention, if I may, since we're in a nonprofit break here, a Free Speech TV break, that there is a new premium that we didn't have time to get into our pitch this morning. Two new premiums. At the $120 contribution level for Free Speech TV, a new book, In My Own Words, by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and at the $50 level, a new tote bag that says Be Notorious, just FYI. I'll be telling you all about those tomorrow, but I just wanted to let you know. Tom, you're on the air, Tom, in Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Tom. I'm a monthly contributor, though, but thank you anyway. Now, if the Democrats hold the House and manage to take the Senate, would you explain to me, wouldn't it be impractical for the Republicans to do a 12th Amendment gambit, or would they do it anyway, probably to just try and delay an inevitable Democratic administration?
I think that you have to separate, quote, the Republicans from the Trump, the maggots, the Trump humpers. And Donald Trump is desperately trying to hang on to power because he's afraid that he's going to go to prison and that his entire criminal enterprise, the so-called Trump organization, is going to collapse and end up in bankruptcy and ruins all around him, by the time that Letitia James and others are done with him. So he's going to push forward on that no matter what. He has a small number of people, certainly within the administration, who are total loyal toadies and will do whatever he says. Bill Barr at the top of that list. He also has a number of senators who are apparently willing to do that. And members of the House as well. Jim Jordan and all these guys, they're still totally in with him. So even though if we take the House and Senate, and if Trump manages to hang on to the White House, even if he does it with something that is, less than honorable or credible, like the 12th Amendment, he gets some help from some of the Republican buddies, I think that the next step would be to impeach him all over again. And I'm not sure that the results would be the same. I think that it might be possible that, particularly if the Democrats take the Senate, although it does take 2/3 of the Senate to vote to remove from office, so you'd have to peel off, a little short of a dozen, I think, Republicans. But I think it's possible. So
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I just don't think the game is over here. I think that there's still a ways to go on this. Michelle in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Hey, Michelle, let me put you on hold because I just noticed I only have about 40 seconds here, and I don't want to just inflict that on you. I'll pick you up on the other side. I'm also a little later on in the program, and in fact, actually, I'm going to do this right after the break. Get into this. Remember the forced hysterectomies that ICE is doing? Well, the story is getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And I will share that with you in just a moment. This is probably the grimmest story to come out of the Trump administration. Stick around. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. The hidden history of the war on voting tells how the GOP has been stealing elections for decades and will again this year unless we stop them. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. My new book is out, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. American monopolies dominate, control, and consume most of the energy of our entire economic system. They function the same as cancer does in a body, and like cancer, they weaken our systems while threatening to crash the entire body economic. American monopolies have also seized massive political power and use it to maintain their obscene profits and CEO salaries while crushing small competitors. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, quote, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation," end quote. It's the fourth in my Hidden History series. Available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag, you're it. And welcome back, Michelle in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Hey, Michelle, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Professor Hartmann, how are you today?
I am well.
Okay, so I apologize for getting a little off topic, but earlier there was a caller who called in and asked if the left had an organization like the Federalist Society, and we actually do. It's called the American Constitution Society for Law and Policy, and Russ Feingold is the president. It's headquartered in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Thank
just
you.
Wanted to share that.
Is the American Constitution Society vetting Supreme Court justices for the Democratic Party?
They help make recommendations. They put forth lists. They actually were founded to be modeled after the Federalist Society for the progressive, as a progressive counterpart.
That's great. I've bumped into them in terms of reading, over the years a couple of times, but never did a deep dive. And thank you, Michelle, for putting that on our radar. And I'm guessing that right now Sean is trying to track them down. It would be great to get a member of the American Constitution Society on the program and learn more about them. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Michelle.
I try to put that law degree to use.
You're doing a great job of it. Michelle, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day now. Thank you.
You too now.
Good talking
Bye-bye.
with you. Good. Thank you. Curtis in Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, Curtis, what's on your mind today?
Oh, repulsivekins. That's what I call them. The fact that there's no shame with these people, and they don't mind cheating. In fact, we wouldn't be in this shape if there had been any repulsivekins that had a spine, a backbone, that weren't enablers. Trump can't do anything without the enablers. I mean, he can get up there. He's a blowhard, yeah, but he needs the enablers, the people like Lindsey Graham. I mean, I don't know what to say about him. While John McCain's alive and voting against Trump, Lindsey Graham says, well, he should be able to vote who he wants to. But I wonder how many times he's called Cindy McCain and apologized for being silent while Trump bashes her husband.
I guarantee you the number is zero,
hero.
Curtis.
But
zero.
what I am most concerned about is the racism in the country that the enablers ignore. Michael Cohen said that the one reason Trump is so against Barack Obama is because he's black.
Yep.
No other reason. He's black. There has to be that third of the electorate that you talk about. A third of the electorate agree with them. They want to erase every mention of Barack Obama from history. Like they want to erase everything pertaining to slavery from history. It never happened in the United States.
Yeah, and Trump just announced a campaign to do that, his 1776 project, which is to take on the New York Times 1619 project. And, let's teach Americans that, slaveholders were good, nice, sweet people, and slaves would just love to sing songs and pick cotton.
Right.
Well, we're getting closer to hitting our goal. Hopefully we'll hit it before the end of this week because this is the last week of the fund drive. It's Monday. That goal that we're talking about is the one that will unlock Andrew from San Diego's $10,000 match. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help us knock this one out of the park in the final week of the fall pledge drive. We're moving along well. I mean, you know, we're not hitting the levels that we would if it wasn't, you know, the political season. We all know that. We started with a fairly modest goal, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do need, though, some substantial help. I think we're about $80,000 down for this week. So that's what we've got to get, and we need your help to get it. And every $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, every contribution, regardless of size, is going to get us closer to hitting that goal that will then unlock Andrew's $10,000 donation. Also, you know, our friend Mike from San Francisco is covering all the hard costs of this fundraising drive. So, you know, typically if you give $100, a few dollars of that goes to cover the 800 numbers in the database and all that kind of junk, credit card processing fees. Mike has covered all that. So if you give $100 today, $100 goes to Free Speech TV, every single penny. Plus, it might be doubled by Mike if we can hit our goal at the end of the week. So call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs you. And, I mean, isn't it a fine thing that we have this television network? It is just an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV needs you, so please call now. With a $20 gift, you can get your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. There's a story to that, by the way, to that bumper sticker. A fellow by the name of Caleb here in town, here in Portland, back when we were doing the show locally on KPOJ, was listening to the show one day, and I don't know if he makes bumper stickers or just knows how to make them, or if he has a print company. I'm not frankly sure. But he sent me a note saying, would you like some bumper stickers? And I said, sure, why not? And he designed them, he wrote them, he came up with them. They're so cool, you know, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. I love it. And we've had a big box of them ever since. And, you know, at fund drives, we give away a few. And it's basically the only way to get them is to donate to Free Speech TV now. So that's the bumper sticker, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Then there's also the sticker that Free Speech TV came up with, which is Fight for Democracy, or your very own set of 3 stainless steel straws. And it occurred to me, I've ordered some of these straws. I'm looking forward to their arriving because, like, for example, here, when the smoke has been so bad, the air is so bad that I've had to wear a mask indoors. But the same, I think, you know, the situation would be the same if I was going to a restaurant. They say taking that mask off is the thing that increases the risk, where they're finding that eating in a restaurant substantially increases your chances of picking up COVID. Well, if I wore my mask, and not for eating, but for drinking, you know, if I just went in to have a smoothie or you know, something like that, or some iced tea, can I stick the straw up under the corner of the mask? I think so. You know, they don't make masks with holes in them. I mean, you wouldn't want that, but anyhow, 3 stainless steel straw. That's all with a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover. There is the Free Speech TV tote bag, your choice, one of these 3 things. The tote bag, this is with a $50 gift, or the postcard pack, Fight for Democracy. We were talking on the show last Friday about people, you know, using the post office, right? Sending notes to each other, sending cards to each other. My friend Alex, who sent me a letter, it's like, oh, how cool is this, right? So there you go, the postcard pack. With the $75 gift, you've got the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Or you can get the Free Speech TV hat, the hat with the Free Speech TV logo. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks, really nice, high-quality face masks about what can we grow on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker gift to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. You have your choice. For our video this week for supportors of our program, you can find it over at ThomHartmann.com. Ask me about Free Speech TV. We're talking about endocrine disruptors as modulators of obesity. And this is, in fact, the title of the article in Cell Endocrinology was Endocrine Disruptors as Obesogens. Why is it that almost 1/3 of Americans are obese? and that's not true of, say, Italians. And it turns out there's actually a single measurable, definable variable. There's a category, or actually several broad categories of chemicals that are found in the American food supply in particular places, and therefore fairly easy to avoid, that actually disrupt our endocrine system, our hormone system, and cause us to crave more food, to eat more food, and also downregulate our metabolism so that we burn less energy so that food gets stored as fat. You can check it out at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. You will recall when this story broke a few weeks ago, this Law and Crime actually was the first place that I knew of that published it. This was on September 14th. Jerry Lamba writing the headline, "Like an experimental concentration camp, whistleblower complaint alleges mass hysterectomies at ICE detention center." A nurse who worked there, her name was Dawn Wooten. This is the center at the Irwin County Detention Center in Georgia, operated by LaSalle Corrections, a private prison company. She says that multiple women have come forward. This is from her complaint. A detained immigrant told Project South that she talked to 5 different women detained at ICDC between October and December of last year who had a hysterectomy done. Multiple women have come forward to talk about this. It's one particular guy. He represents himself as a gynecologist. It turns out he's not even board certified as a gynecologist. Wooten said everyone he sees has a hysterectomy. Just about everyone. Everybody's uterus cannot be that bad. The women in the place call him the uterus collector. So, I spoke out and said, why would they be doing this? Is this, the only 2 reasons that come to my mind immediately are, number one, it's eugenics. This is perpetuation of Stephen Miller's "Let's turn America white again." Let's, make America white again. They use the word great, but we all know what they mean. That's what it is. They're trying to sterilize brown women, Hispanic women. Or that they're trying to cover up things like pregnancies that result from rape by guards. And at the time that I raised that, I said, I'm reluctant to even say this out loud because it just sounds so awful. But over the weekend, 25 people were protesting outside the Douglas County Jail on Saturday in response to these allegations. And then ProPublica publishes this. This came out, I believe, today by Lomi Creel. Guards at an immigration detention center sexually assaulted and harassed inmates in a pattern of and practice of abuse. Now, this was in the El Paso Center, but, hey, they're all run by the same people, basically. These studies, the allegations detailed in a filing first obtained by ProPublica and the Texas Tribune, say that the guards systematically assaulted people, often in areas of the detention center not visible to security cameras. The guards told victims that no one would believe them because footage did not exist, and the harassment involved officers as high-ranking as a lieutenant. Since the complaint was filed Wednesday, 2 more women have come forward with abuse allegations. At least 1 other woman was deported after a guard assaulted her. The El Paso County District Attorney's Office has forwarded potentially criminal allegations to the DHS's Inspector General. All right, Chad Wolf's definitely going to do something about this, isn't he? This particular place, it's run by Global Precision Systems, which is a subsidiary of Bering Straits Native Corporation, which contracts with ICE to run the El Paso facility. ICE imprisons about 50,000 immigrants across the United States. You and I pay $2.7 billion a year, mostly to private for-profit contractors who are big donors to the Republican Party for this. Out of that 50,000 immigrants who are detained, between 2010 and 2016, there was 14,700 complaints alleging physical and sexual abuse. Formal complaints. People who are actually willing to put up with the possibility of being, put in solitary or being raped or whatever as retribution. And they note in the ProPublica notes, only a small fraction were ever inspected by the Office of the Inspector General. In a May court filing in Houston, a Mexican woman said in an ICE facility, she and 2 female detainees were moved to an isolation cell. Around midnight, 3 men wearing facial coverings entered the cell. They raped and beat them. The immigrants were then bused to Mexico hours later, where the woman eventually discovered that she was pregnant from that assault. The detention center, which is run by Core Civic, called the allegations slanderous and denied them, but there is a civil lawsuit going on. A Salvadoran woman, this is again, I'm reading this, you can find this at ProPublica.org. A Salvadoran woman was repeatedly harassed. A guard said that if she would fool around with him, he'd give her clean uniforms and soap. He told her he'd pay her a lot of money to meet him for sex in a spot not visible to the cameras. 2 other officers also repeatedly targeted her, according to the complaint. One sent her messages through other women even after she was released. She said in a telephone interview that guards encourage women to sign up for anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants because the guards oversee the dispensing of medication at night and have access to an enclosed off-camera area. I thought it was too, frankly, Louise and I debated even bringing this up on the radio because it's like, that's just like so over the top that they're performing hysterectomies so that they can rape these women without worrying about getting them pregnant. And I still, I have no evidence of this, just, 2 + 2. But my God. Anyway. Back to all the other news of the day. It's like it just never stops. It's like, drinking out of a fire hose here in the Trump administration. Every day there's some new fascist or right-wing, outrage, for lack of a better word. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, not too much, Tom. Hey, I just want to tell you, I'm like 99% sure Trump's going to pick Amy Coney Barrett, and let me tell you why. It's confirmation bias thing. As you said many times, Trump relishes the legacy of Ronald Reagan. Okay, and really, he needs the evangelical support, even if it's just perception. Like, really, maybe his evangelical numbers of support are locked in, but he might perceive things, because he relishes that Reagan mythology, the Reagan mythology, right? And Amy Coney Barrett is the perfect choice for this confirmation bias. Like, we would not even know about confirmation bias if there wasn't DNA tests, right? Science proves that a lot of these investigations were done with a confirmation bias. But I argue occasionally with evangelicals from the perspective of an atheist. And so I see things differently. Then, like you're a believer, right? When you argue with them, it's different. I see it differently than you do. And I'm telling you right now, they need like Amy Coney Barrett as a woman. She can she can demonstrate that there really is no, innate inferiority to being the rib of a man. All right, Amy Coney Barrett said that she finds the law a means to an end. The end is the kingdom of heaven on earth, the Malkut Shemayim, as it is in Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
And these things, and also...
And she's part of a group that says that women should submit to their husbands, et cetera, et cetera. The thing, Dave, that may blow this up, and Trump is now talking about, hey, one of these women is a Hispanic from Florida, and he desperately needs Florida. So, I think that frankly, I'm disagreeing with you. I think that's going to be his Hail Mary. And I'm sorry, I don't have my list in front of me. I don't recall her name. We're new to, although Amy Coney Barrett has been, she was considered back when they were talking about Kavanaugh. She is the fundamentalists', dream, but she's not Hispanic. She's not from Florida. And she had an interview with Donald Trump when they were considering Kavanaugh. And apparently she pissed off Trump. Apparently she talked back to him or said something like, I'm not just going to do whatever you tell me to do, or words to that effect. Now, this is from second and third sources, but the one thing that I have seen in big media, in the Washington Post this morning, was that the interview didn't go well, was the phrase that they use. So, Dave, if Trump was not in trouble in Florida, And if he had not, if he had not failed to bond with her during the Kavanaugh time, I would agree with you. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, there's also the thing with the election results. They're really worried about they want to confirm these skewed election results, and they want a cooperative court. Okay, and Amy Coney Barrett, I honestly believe as a Caucasian, Trump's going to feel more comfortable with her, demurring to his male supremacy.
We'll see. We'll see. Yep. We'll see. I guarantee you that's going to be one of the variables that they're looking at, because he is going to want a Supreme Court to say, no, we shouldn't count mail-in ballots after November 3rd. He's definitely going to do that. He's going to try and take it to the courts. He's already told us that. He also told us he wants to take it to Congress.
You're
12th
listening
Amendment.
to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 45 minutes past the hour here on The Place, where smart people get their news. We'll be right back with more of your calls. And welcome back. Ellen in Cortland Manor, New York. Hey, Ellen, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I do want to talk about what I originally wanted to get, which was your advice. But I got to tell you, as a woman, I am sickened by this uterus collector. And as it was being flushed out a little bit, the Senate Democrats have to focus on, that issue, because it's Florida. Let's say, it's a Cuban woman who would be nominated for the Supreme Court, and he needs Florida so badly. I mean, the Biden campaign should just be, bashing, Trump over Florida. And I know that Bloomberg, has put in $100 million to help. But, it's like Mitch McConnell, held up that Violence for Women Act. And this is pervasive.
Yeah.
And I just think...
and Republicans have been fighting, the Equal Rights Amendment since what, the 1920s? I mean, forever.
So the original reason why that I called is because I wanted to have advice from you on how to stop Senate Republicans ramming the Supreme Court pick. We can't get a hold of the Senate on the phone. And Chuck Schumer, in my mind, is weak. And I'm from New York, and so I have a problem with Chuck Schumer. And their record...
Well, I think that's why he brought Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with him to his press conference yesterday.
Well, we need all the help we can get. So I'm, like I said, the Dems have 0 wins, and it's really up to us. So would it behoove us if we were to, go back to the Trump properties and protest, or I was thinking maybe contacting the media and asking them to give the Americans the hard truth about everything that we're going to lose? I think most Americans have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's the op-ed I wrote today that's published over at BuzzFlash.com. If you can't get through to a Republican senator on the regular congressional switchboard, the 202-224-225-3121 number, they all have multiple offices back in their states. Local offices, and those numbers are on their websites. And typically, the protocol for a senator's website is, like Bernie's is sanders.senate.gov. And so, if you wanted to, you've got a couple of Republican senators who are sounding skeptical. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. There are others who may or may not. But if you want to call their offices, rather than calling their office in Washington, D.C., which may be problematic, you can call their state offices by tracking those numbers down. I'm not sure that, protest in the streets, those kinds of things, I'm generally all in favor of our making our presence known in legal and peaceful ways that are as conspicuous as possible. But I think that it's going to, the main thing if you have friends on social media, the main thing is to get your friends who are constituents of Republicans who are in trouble. You know, the Cory Gardners, the Martha McSallys, the fill in the blanks, right? The ones who are up for re-election, to be calling them and raising hell with them. Ellen, I'm out of time, but thank you for the call. We'll be right back. On this week's Science Revolution, how Trump's new herd mentality strategy could kill 6 million Americans and destroy our economy. Trump doesn't know how to run a business, so we shouldn't be surprised that he doesn't know how to run a country. His latest failure, tragically, is the United States of America. Economist Richard Wolff and Dr. Justin Frank drop by on all this. Plus, Dr. Gary Yo is here on the apocalyptic wildfires and climate warming. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. And welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. Jason in Indianapolis. Hey, Jason, what's up?
Hi, yes, I have a scenario I'd like to throw out that I haven't really heard anybody talk about. I know there's 47 Democrats in the Senate and 53 Republicans. Say Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, and another Republican were to vote present but not nay. That would give you 47 nays. And say you have 48 yays, but not a simple majority, but you have more yays than nays, would that confirmation still go through?
No, it's going to require 51 votes. But keep in mind, there's 101 votes in the Senate. The Constitution stipulates that the vice president is the president of the Senate, and he votes. He can vote in the Senate on any tie. He can break a tie. And so if it were to come down to 50-50, if you had 3 Republicans defect or even vote no, along with the 47 Democrats at 50-50, you would still get a confirmation because Mike Pence would break that tie. But I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong on this, Jason, but I would almost bet money that I'm not, that a plurality doesn't win in the Senate, that it requires a majority. I mean, that's the essence of your question, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they, like Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, they come together and they vote present, so they're actually not voting no. And say you have 49 Republicans vote yay and 47, you have 47 Democrats vote no, and say you have 4 or 5 Republicans vote present, you still have a majority of yays compared to the nays, but not the 51.
Right.
It would still go through.
I would have to go back and read the Constitution, but I'm pretty sure that in fact, I've got it in my hand here. And I'm pretty sure, though, that it is a majority of senators, which I believe would be interpreted as, more than 50%. But Jason, let me look that up and get back with you. But because all of a sudden I'm going, wait a minute, maybe. But I'm pretty sure that that's the case. Jason, thank you for the call. Kyle in Earlville, Illinois. Hey, Kyle, what's up?
Hey, calling with the perspective that Biden needs to take the approach that the next elected president gets to pick the 9th justice. It's the 9th justice. Even if Trump adds one now, frame it that's the 10th justice. Trump's acting out of turn and increasing the number to 10. And if Trump does that, then Biden not only needs to add the 9th justice, he then needs to add the 11th justice to negate the out of turn. And when you frame it that way, it all makes sense, sets him up to be able to do it no matter which way things go. And it's in Trump's hands at that point in time.
Yeah. Well, that would be one way to message it. I think that right now we're beyond messaging, but I get what you're saying. Richard in Townsend, Delaware. Hey, Richard, what's up?
How you doing? I had a thing that is about media. It's about like the right-wing media that's down the road radio, and they have a lot of false negative statements that they spread over and over again. And I wonder, this, like you say, you can't say fire in a movie theater, it will cause a ruckus, but freedom of speech, I understand it's freedom of speech, but it should be over the airwaves and talk about Fox News also. They can't spread, should not be allowed to spread false information. And you have people like the followers of Trump believe in this false information that they spread. I think they should be fined if there's any such thing, fine those radio stations, television stations, and for spreading false news. That's what I think will help keep our...
Prior to 1987, Richard, but prior to 1987, we had this thing called the Fairness Doctrine, which required that radio and television stations, quote, broadcast in the public interest, end quote. And if you could demonstrate to the Federal Communications Commission prior to 1987 that a program on radio or television was consistently spreading falsehoods or lies in ways that actually were not consistent with the public interest, then you could get their license pulled. Reagan stopped enforcing that in 87, and President Obama removed it from the FCC regulations altogether.
Wow.
I think it was in 2014 or 2015. I forget which year. But that's gone now. And in fact, there were two reporters. The man's name was Steve. It'll take me a minute to remember their names because it's been like 10 years since I interviewed them on this show. But anyhow, there were these two reporters down in Florida who were working for a Fox-owned television station. And they did a report on RGBH, which is the recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH. And they found that this hormone actually, could have negative side effects. They wrote the story, and they were going to present the story on this local TV station because it was a big local issue. There's a lot of cattle in that area near Orlando. And the TV station said, no, you've got to rewrite the story and say that RBGH is just fine, that there's nothing wrong with this hormone, that it's safe. They rewrote their story over 20 times. Jane Aker and Steve, what was his last name, Sean? Wilson. Steve, that's right, Steve Wilson and Jane Aker. You can Google this. And they got fired. They appealed, and a jury said, yes, they were improperly fired. They were being forced to lie. The Fox took it to the appeals court, and the appeals court said, no, this station, being a corporation, has, as a person, the First Amendment right to free speech. And free speech includes the right to lie. And that's the precedent that still stands to this day. That was like 10, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer. It used to be on a website called foxrbghsuit.com, as I recall, but I don't know if that website is still up. But Richard, we are in a whole world of hurt right now because of what Ronald Reagan did, and and we're just looking at the results of it. Richard, thank you for your call. I appreciate your passion. We'll be right back. We've got a fascinating show coming up. Ken Klippenstein is going to be with us, national correspondent with The Nation, about white supremacists.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company. More information at carshield.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Boll and Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at Boll, B-O-L-L, and branch.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, T-E-E-F, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!
Well, we're getting closer to hitting our goal. Hopefully we'll hit it before the end of this week because this is the last week of the fund drive. It's Monday. That goal that we're talking about is the one that will unlock Andrew from San Diego's $10,000 match. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help us knock this one out of the park in the final week of the fall pledge drive. We're moving along well. I mean, we're not hitting the levels that we would if it wasn't, the political season. We all know that. We started with a fairly modest goal, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do need, though, some substantial help. I think we're about $80,000 down for this week. So that's what we've got to get, and we need your help to get it. And every $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, every contribution, regardless of size, is going to get us closer to hitting that goal that will then unlock Andrew's $10,000 donation. Also, our friend Mike from San Francisco is covering all the hard costs of this fundraising drive. So, typically if you give $100, a few dollars of that goes to cover the 800 numbers and the database and all that kind of junk, credit card processing fees. Mike has covered all that. So if you give $100 today, $100 goes to Free Speech TV, every single penny. Plus, it might be doubled by Mike if we can hit our goal at the end of the week. So call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs you. And, isn't it a fine thing that we have this television network? It is just an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV needs you, so please call now. With a $20 gift, you can get your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. There's a story to that, by the way, to that bumper sticker. A fellow by the name of Caleb here in town, here in Portland, back when we were doing the show locally on KPOJ, was listening to the show one day, and I don't know if he makes bumper stickers or just knows how to make them, or if he has a print company. I'm not frankly sure. But he sent me a note saying, would you like some bumper stickers? And I said, sure, why not? And he designed them, he wrote them, he came up with them. They're so cool, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. I love it. And we've had a big box of them ever since. And, at fund drives, we give away a few. And it's basically the only way to get them is to donate to Free Speech TV now. So that's the bumper sticker, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Then there's also the sticker that Free Speech TV came up with, which is Fight for Democracy, or your very own set of 3 stainless steel straws. And it occurred to me, I've ordered some of these straws. I'm looking forward to their arriving because, for example, here when the smoke has been so bad, the air is so bad that I've had to wear a mask indoors. But the same, I think, the situation would be the same if I was going to a restaurant. They say taking that mask off is the thing that increases the risk, where they're finding that eating in a restaurant substantially increases your chances of picking up COVID. Well, if I wore my mask, and not for eating, but for drinking, if I just went in to have a smoothie or something like that, or some iced tea, can I stick the straw up under the corner of the mask? I think so. They don't make masks with holes in them. You wouldn't want that, but anyhow, 3 stainless steel straw. That's all with a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover. There is the Free Speech TV tote bag, your choice, one of these 3 things. The tote bag, this is with a $50 gift, or the postcard pack, Fight for Democracy. We were talking on the show last Friday about people, using the post office, right? Sending notes to each other, sending cards to each other. My friend Alex, who sent me a letter, it's like, oh, how cool is this, right? So there you go, the postcard pack. With the $75 gift, you've got the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Or you can get the Free Speech TV hat, the hat with the Free Speech TV logo. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks, really nice, high-quality face masks about what can we grow from crisis. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of one of 4 things: either the T-shirt that says "Ask Me About Free Speech TV," or your choice of one of 3 books, including 2 that I wrote: The Hidden History of the War on Voting, which is really about this moment, or The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, which is really about the last 40 years and the next 40 years going forward. and what we can do. And then, of course, there's also Greg Palast's book, How Trump Stole 2020. If you don't have a copy of that, you can get that for a $120 gift to Free Speech TV. With a $240 gift, we've got 2 virtual meet and greets coming up, one in October on the 14th, one in November on the 18th, where we'll get together on Zoom. It'll be off the record, no recording, it won't be on the air, and so, you might even hear me use a 4-letter word. We'll have fun. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Fall Box with the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Democracy sticker, the Free Speech TV tote bag, the Democracy postcards, and my book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And with a $1,000 gift, you can get in line to come here to Portland and see how we make the magic happen. So those are the premiums. Most important, help us out now. We got to hit this goal, unlock that $10,000 gift, and make it all happen. Make it all work. Call now, 877-378.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the second hour of our program. In the first hour, I was sharing with you how the Justice Department has now named Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and New York City as, quote, anarchist jurisdictions. And the Trump administration has directed various federal agencies to figure out how they can cut federal funding to these cities because we have protests against the president going on in these cities. Bill Barr, meanwhile, has, in a conference call with U.S. attorneys last week, said that protesters protesting the death of black men at the hands of white police officers should be charged with sedition. I mean, this is how bizarre it's gotten. And now we find that the Department of Homeland Security has just fallen through Alice's rabbit hole. This is just amazing. A brilliant piece in The Nation magazine by the Nation's D.C. correspondent, Ken Klippenstein. TheNation.com is the website. Ken's Twitter handle is Ken Klippenstein, Klippenstein, over on Twitter. The title of the piece is White Supremacists Are a Threat to Elections, say DHS. Ken, welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, great to be with you again.
So tell us about what is going on. From reading your piece, it seems like either there's an internal battle at DHS or there's a few people who are just like, throwing their hands up. I mean, give us the story. Give us the backstory and then the story.
Yeah, that's an important point you make. There is a conflict at DHS, which is absolutely true. We tend to think of these agencies as being monolithic. But, while there are political appointees that the president chooses, there are also rank and file career folks that have been there for, in many cases over a decade. And they tend to have different views, different interests than the politicals that are put in place. And so this document, this intelligence report, stressing the importance of focusing on white supremacists and the threats that they pose, the physical threats that they pose to election security this election season. I think that this shows that conflict that's happening internally. I have a lot of sources in DHS. It has long been a frustration of theirs trying to get resources to go after these far-right white supremacist groups, not just white supremacists, but also the anti-government militia groups who are killing more and more people in recent years. It didn't start now, but it certainly accelerated. There was one case of a far-right militia member who killed multiple federal law enforcement officers in California. And really, after that happened, that's when you start to see a whole lot more movement from these agencies internally anyways. And so what's interesting about this document that I had leaked to me from a source in the law enforcement community was that it showed not just that they identified white supremacists as the chief threat to physical security as opposed to, say, cybersecurity, which is an entirely different matter. It also went into a pretty detailed discussion of these different groups and their motives. And chief among their motives they cited was perceived grievances about immigration, which, I don't know if you've paid much attention to the president, but that is certainly consistent with this kind of rhetoric that we've seen coming out of this administration. So it was very surprising to me to see this come out of an agency that we know has had problems tracking the threat of white supremacists in the past.
So we're seeing where scientists are quitting over at the EPA, where people who are interested, because they're being forced to allow more pollution and more cancers and more deaths in America. We're seeing over at the Interior Department people resigning because the Interior Department, which manages our federal lands, is now selling off our federal lands to mining operations and whatnot, for pennies on the dollar. We're seeing, federal agency after federal agency, you've got people resigning in protest at the Department of Justice over what Bill Barr is doing, his swing toward fascism. Now this crisis at DHS, just unambiguously, I think most Americans remembering 9/11 think that Muslim terrorists represent the greatest threat to America. Where are radicalized Muslim terrorists on the hierarchy of threats compared to white guys with AR-15s walking around in our cities?
Yeah, there was a group called the Center for Strategic Intelligence Studies that put out an assessment looking back, I think it was 25 years, at these various extremist groups, both far right and far left. And what they found was that in the case of Antifa or, self-described anarchists, whatever you may think of them, and, it is factually true that there has been, property destruction, broken windows, that kind of thing. They couldn't find a single case of a person that they had killed. And when you compare that with the far right groups, like the white supremacists and the anti-government groups, they found a far higher number. I think it was in the hundreds or maybe low thousands. So to, draw any sort of equivalence between, what law enforcement says is, property destruction, that kind of thing, and the kind of violence that you see on the far right, it just seems silly, and folks inside will tell you that too. And these are not, left-wing progressives, the kind of folks that comprise the intelligence and law enforcement agencies. That's not to say that they're, far-right Trump people necessarily, although those are obviously there. They tend to be more towards the center. Certainly, they don't tend towards the far left by any means. And they themselves are saying, sure, they don't like Antifa, they don't like the property destruction, that kind of thing. But they have a sense that we need to prioritize what's going on here and the real, not just violence, but politically motivated violence and the sort of violence that is getting increasingly organized. In terms of, I know that they have intelligence that far-right groups are starting to travel to places like Ukraine to get training from paramilitary, very scary paramilitary, essentially neo-Nazi groups there. And when you see that degree of organization and sort of coordination and collusion, that's a much different sort of thing than if a kid throws a brick through a window or something. So the two are just not the same.
What specifically, and I think the last time we had violent leftists in the United States was the Weather Underground, and they've been long gone for 50 years. What is the specific threat that these white supremacists in the United States represent?
So the intelligence report mentions them. They said that they had found, I think, internal checks in which they were discussing trying to spread COVID among minority groups. They have this ideology that whites are being replaced in the country, and that they're trying to install an illegitimate government, and from their point of view. And so their view is to try to push out the non-whites. And the way that you go about doing that, they have a few different strategies. I know other intelligence reports. This one was quite short. It was maybe 2 pages long. It doesn't go into detail. But I've seen other intelligence reports from, for example, the FBI, which I've had leaked to me in the past, that show that they had planned actually trying to dress up and look like far left protesters, and then engaging in property destruction or even violence with the.
Well, we saw that in Minneapolis.
Exactly.
The first guy who was smashing windows in that car dealership that led to all the window smashing and looting turns out was a right winger.
I didn't know that. I'm not familiar with that case, but this is a strategy that they employ to try to turn public opinion against the protesters, and they've been very. To give you an example, I mentioned a far right militia guy that killed some federal law enforcement. this is actually a very interesting case. Took place in California this summer. He was a special forces guy under the Air Force. He had elite training, and he actually got a machine gun that he put a silencer on and drove around in a minivan when he killed these officers. His goal in using the silencer was he did it near a protest so that he hoped that the police would think it was the protesters that did that. So there's a lot of thought going on.
Well, and in fact, there were right-wingers at the time and to this day who are accusing left-wingers of those murders. Ken Klippenstein, you're doing brilliant reporting over at The Nation magazine. Thanks so much for dropping by today. It's great talking with you again. Thank you.
Good to talk to you, Tom.
Keep up the great work, Ken. We'll be right back. It's 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Michelle in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Michelle, what's on your mind today?
Well, there's going to be a lot of changes on the Supreme Court. I want to tell you that before ultrasound imaging was invented, talk of abortion in cases of severe birth defects rarely occurred. The defective infant would die shortly after coming into the world. Some would call it God's will, and the doctor was not involved. Then medical science advanced. Doctors could detect severe neural tube defects in the first trimester. Defects such as hydrocephaly, spina bifida, and anencephaly would be diagnosed, and the parents would face a choice: prolonging the pregnancy or abort the fetus. Religious people might bring the baby to term, not realizing the extent of the problems facing them. The problem for the doctor became life and death, but the expertise of modern medical technology began to play a huge part in the determination. Fearing liability, doctors move swiftly after such births, for they cannot withhold treatment.
Michelle, forgive my interrupting you, but I generally try to discourage people from reading on the air. Do you want to just make your point, please?
You're not going to get the whole thing.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get the whole thing. Brian in Anaheim, California. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Hi. At the hypocrisy coming out of the GOP with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is infuriating. It is repulsive, especially Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Judiciary in 2016, when Merrick Garland was nominated, he flat out came out and said, hold me accountable. We're setting a new precedent. This is going to be the same for any Republican. If they have to fill a Supreme Court nominee, we will not fill a seat in an election year. That's how we're going to do it. And he has since come back out and just completely gone back out of his word. He gave us a pledge. He broke it, and we cannot stand for it. We need to support his challenger, Jamie Harrison. He's this progressive young black politician. They are in a dead heat. We need to phone bank for him. We need to send him $50, and we need to take the Senate. It is absolutely essential. Anybody in in order to take the Senate, anybody in Colorado has to call Cory Gardner's office. Anybody in Utah has to come out and call Mitt Romney, and anybody in Iowa has to call Senator Grassley's office. These are other members, I believe, on the Judiciary Committee in 2016 who came out and said they would do exactly what Susan Collins has done, which is say we need to wait until after the election. Right. This is our precedent, and this is what we're going to do. It's just
don't forget Joni Ernst.
Joni Ernst, yeah. So that's what we need to do. It is not enough to just vote, Tom. We need to make phone calls. We need to financially support. Everybody can afford $50. I gave $50 to Jamie Harrison. Everybody on the show needs to pick a senator. This is not a joke anymore. They need to pick a senator. And I recommend phone banking. You can phone bank from anywhere. You can phone bank from anywhere, and it makes all the difference. Getting out the vote is going to make the difference on this. And it is not an exaggeration to say that this is life and death. There are a lot of people that will. Look at how many people died as a result of the Trump getting into office and Mitt Romney and the U.S. Senate being Republican. One more time. I'm just really upset. We need to do a lot more than vote. We need to phone bank. Yeah. We need to donate.
I'm with you, Paul. Brian, I'm with you. Is there a particular website for phone? I know about, for example, indivisible.org. Any others that you recommend?
JamieHarrison.com. Jamie is spelled Jaime. He's great.
Okay.
He's good on
Jamie
climate
Harrison.
change. He's good on healthcare. He's progressive. It's a dead heat. It is a dead heat.
He's a solid guy. Thank you, Brian. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So here on the program recently, we had a fascinating conversation with Professor Richard Wolff about how banks have to keep basically 10% in reserve in case there's a run on the bank. Everybody wants their deposits back. The banks can lend out 90%, but they have to keep that 10% so they can pay you, give you your money back if you want it. Fannie and Freddie have a similar requirement in case mortgages go south. Mortgages did go south in 2008. Fannie and Freddie couldn't cover the shortfall, and as a result, they collapsed. And you and I had to pay $190 billion to bail them out. Well, back then, their reserve requirement was 45 cents on $100. Now it's 19 cents on $100. Our special members-only riff you can find over at thomhartmann.com is all about this, what it means, where it could go, and what we can do about it. So check it out at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Fascinating stuff. The CDC had put up on their website saying, well, we now know, this comports, by the way, with what the World Health Organization is saying now. We now know that this virus is transmitted by airborne means, principally. Remember the old doctor from Michigan? He was actually a young doctor from Michigan. The old YouTube. It was old. It was 5 months ago. Where he was saying, here's how to sterilize and sanitize as you bring your groceries home and all this. Turns out that kind of touch transmission is actually fairly rare. And there was a study that was published over the weekend that found that although it's contact tracing in the United States now is getting more and more difficult because the virus has spread so far and so deeply into the American population that people can have multiple places of exposure. But one of the things that they found, just asking people about their habits and what they were doing and what they had been doing leading up to their hospitalization, when they asked people who had tested positive, was that they found that on about a 2-to-1 ratio, people had been to either a bar or a restaurant. Apparently, that's not a good idea. But anyhow, the CDC put this up on their website a couple days ago. Yes, it's transmitted through the air, and in fact, these germs can travel even more than 6 feet, which we've known for 6 months now, and that in an enclosed space, that is a house, a room, an office building, if there's not good ventilation, if the air is not constantly moving and being filtered, then, these particles can be suspended in the air for hours, certainly minutes, more than 6 feet, long periods of time. So be careful about that. Then the CDC yesterday took that down and said, oops, we didn't mean to say that. We're back to the Trump line that nothing to worry about here. But then there's this study. This is published in the New York Daily News. Jessica Schledebeck writing, a single airline passenger unknowingly sickened with coronavirus managed to infect 15 other people during a 10-hour trip to Vietnam, highlighting the dangers of travel amid the pandemic. She was seated in business class, the researchers wrote. She was seated in business class and continued to experience a sore throat and cough throughout the flight. 5 days later, she went to the hospital and tested positive for coronavirus. Now, this being Vietnam has no coronavirus of any consequence because they basically locked the country down. Well, it wasn't so much lockdown. A lot of these countries, Taiwan never locked down. They just said, and Japan, a great story, I believe it was in the Wall Street Journal, but over the weekend about Japan, that, basically they've got this thing under control and they never locked down and their economy didn't crash. So how did they do it? Everybody wears a mask. They shut down the bars and restaurants, and any kind of indoor space that doesn't have good ventilation, you don't go into. And everybody, kind of figured this out, right? So here we have CDC researchers then because this was a flight to Vietnam, they were able to track this down. They tracked down all 217 passengers and crew. And investigators said there was no other likely way that any of the 15 people could have been infected. Amazing. And yet, the Trump administration is like, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Bob in McHenry, Illinois. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Hello. Hi, Tom. Regarding the Supreme Court, if we simply add one or two seats to it, it looks like, and probably is, politicization of the court. But what we really need to do, and I think this would improve the court, is to restructure it into two wings of the court, two benches, one to deal with civil and one to deal with criminal law. And we could assign justices according to their expertise in that regard. We could thereby expand the court to 2 7-justice benches. And if something really critical in the eyes of the court came up, the second bench could ask to join in so that all 14 would review it. And in the event of a tie, the decision of the first wing would prevail.
No, it's an interesting idea, Bob. Other countries do this in a variety of ways. Germany, for example, has a separate court that deals just with constitutional issues, and then they've got a separate Supreme Court that deals with matters of law. Our Supreme Court does both. Is this does this particular policy or case comport with the law, or does this comport with the Constitution? More and more, they're just deciding things on constitutional bases. But prior to the 1950s, really, the majority of Supreme Court cases had to do with the law, not the Constitution. And what you're describing is a possibility, although there can be a lot of overlap between criminal and civil cases. But it's an interesting one. I think that they should just expand the court, and I think that taking it, from 9 to 11 is a step. I think probably 13 would be better, but people think 13 is an unlucky number. So I would say take it to 15 and allow them to do like a lot of the courts do, where you have 3-judge panels and then you can appeal to the entire court. I don't know. It seems like a starting point.
To the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Franklin Roosevelt damn near did this in 1937. And frankly, I think he would have succeeded if he had pushed forward. Well, we're getting closer to hitting our goal. Hopefully we'll hit it before the end of this week, because this is the last week of the fund drive. It's Monday. That goal that we're talking about is the one that will unlock Andrew from San Diego's $10,000 match. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and help us knock this one out of the park in the final week of the fall pledge drive. We're moving along well. I mean, we're not hitting the levels that we would if it wasn't, the political season. We all know that. We started with a fairly modest goal, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do need, though, some substantial help. I think we're about $80,000 down for this week. So that's what we've got to get, and we need your help to get it. And every $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, every contribution, regardless of size, is going to get us closer to hitting that goal that will then unlock Andrew's $10,000 donation. Also, our friend Mike from San Francisco is covering all the hard costs of this fundraising drive. So, typically, if you give $100, a few dollars of that goes to cover the 800 numbers in the database and all that kind of junk, credit card processing fees. Mike has covered all that. So if you give $100 today, $100 goes to Free Speech TV, every single penny. Plus, it might be doubled by Mike if we can hit our goal at the end of the week. So call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs you. And, I mean, isn't it a fine thing that we have this television network? It is just an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV needs you, so please call now. With a $20 gift, you can get your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. There's a story to that, by the way, to that bumper sticker. A fellow by the name of Caleb here in town, here in Portland, back when we were doing the show locally on KPOJ, was listening to the show one day, and I don't know if he makes bumper stickers or just knows how to make them, or if he has a print company. I'm not frankly sure. But he sent me a note saying, would you like some bumper stickers? And I said, sure, why not? And he designed them, he wrote them, he came up with them. They're so cool, you know, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. I love it. And we've had a big box of them ever since. And, you know, at fund drives, we give away a few. And it's basically the only way to get them is to donate to Free Speech TV now. So that's the bumper sticker, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Then there's also the sticker that Free Speech TV came up with, which is Fight for Democracy, or your very own set of 3 stainless steel straws. And it occurred to me, I've ordered some of these straws. I'm looking forward to their arriving because, like, for example, here when the smoke has been so bad, the air is so bad that I've had to wear a mask indoors. But the same, I think, you know, the situation would be the same if I was going to a restaurant. They say taking that mask off is the thing that increases the risk, where they're finding that eating in a restaurant substantially increases your chances of picking up COVID. Well, if I wore my mask, and not for eating, but for drinking, you know, if I just went in to have a smoothie or you know, something like that, or some iced tea, can I stick the straw up under the corner of the mask? I think so. You know, they don't make masks with holes in them. I mean, you wouldn't want that, but anyhow, 3 stainless steel straw. That's all with a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover. There is the Free Speech TV tote bag, your choice, one of these 3 things. The tote bag, this is with a $50 gift, or the postcard pack, Fight for Democracy. We were talking on the show last Friday about people, you know, using the post office, right? Sending notes to each other, sending cards to each other. My friend Alex, who sent me a letter, it's like, oh, how cool is this, right? So there you go, the postcard pack. With the $75 gift, you've got the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Or you can get the Free Speech TV hat, the hat with the Free Speech TV logo. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks, really nice, high-quality face masks about what can we grow from crisis. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of one of 4 things: either the T-shirt that says "Ask Me About Free Speech TV," or your choice of one of 3 books, including 2 that I wrote: The Hidden History of the War on Voting, which is really about this moment, or The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, which is really about the last 40 years and the next 40 years going forward and what we can do. And then, of course, there's also Greg Palast's book, How Trump Stole 2020. If you don't have a copy of that, you can get that for a $120 gift to Free Speech TV. With a $240 gift, we've got 2 virtual meet and greets coming up, one in October on the 14th, one in November on the 18th, where we will get together on Zoom. It'll be off the record, no recording, it won't be on the air, and so, you know, you might even hear me use a 4-letter word. We'll have fun. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University fall box with the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Democracy sticker, the Free Speech TV tote bag, the Democracy postcards, and my book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And with a $1,000 gift, you can get in line to come here to Portland and see how we make the magic happen. So those are the premiums. Most important, help us out now. We got to hit this goal, unlock that $10,000 gift, and make it all happen. Make it all work. Call now, 877-378. Destroy our economy. Trump doesn't know how to run a business, so we shouldn't be surprised that he doesn't know how to run a country. His latest failure, tragically, is the United States of America. Economist Richard Wolff and Dr. Justin Frank drop by on all this. Plus, Dr. Gary Young is here on the apocalyptic wildfires and climate warming. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. In the first hour of the program, I was talking about how another right-winger on the Supreme Court, particularly a hardcore right-winger, on the fascist end of the spectrum, we could see Social Security get wiped out, declared unconstitutional. It almost happened in 1937. We could see Medicare and Medicaid being declared unconstitutional and destroyed. We could go back to the Lochner Court and see minimum wage laws struck down and child labor laws struck down. We could see our nation's public schools being gutted, an effort that Betsy DeVos has been cheerleading for some time. We could see any effort to reduce carbon emissions that or quote violate the rights of refiners and drillers, all of that stuff. But probably more or not more or less, but another issue here that as certainly the entire country has gone through a big change on in the last 20 years, I would say, is the issue of gay marriage and LGBTQ rights and just that whole spectrum of stuff. And it looks like all of the women that Donald Trump is considering are people who are relatively hostile to such ideas. On the line with us is Alfonso David. He's the president of the Human Rights Campaign, hrc.org, a great organization, one of my kids used to work for. Alfonso David is also his Twitter handle, or @HRC. Alfonso, welcome back to the program, or President David. Tell me, what do you know about the people that Trump is considering, and what kind of impact, let's say we get somebody on the court who is opposed to gay marriage or to marriage equality, I guess is a better phrase, who is opposed to marriage equality. How does that play out? What happens?
Well, first, Tom, thank you so much for having me. You're right. The Trump administration, and Trump specifically, has gone after LGBTQ people for the past 3.5 to 4 years. And we cannot afford to have a justice on the Supreme Court roll back our rights. Marriage equality, as you reference, is settled law, but LGBTQ people still face discrimination every single day, even after the Bostock decision, which effectively said, employers, you cannot discriminate against employees in the workplace. LGBTQ people and their families face discrimination when they're seeking housing or education or even entering a store or a restaurant. And in the coming years, what's at stake is whether individuals and organizations have a license to discriminate against LGBTQ people when they seek basic services, whether LGBTQ people and their families can be turned away from businesses that are open to the general public, whether qualified transgender people can be denied and excluded from access to the U.S. military, whether or not same-sex couples will be allowed to adopt or serve as foster parents. I mean, there is a laundry list. And what's one of the most important pieces, of course, is the Affordable Care Act. We know that 1 out of 5 LGBTQ people live in poverty. 1 out of 5 LGBTQ people don't have access to health care. And those that do have access to health care are at risk of losing that health care because the Trump administration has been focused on dismantling the Affordable Care Act. So those are just a few things that are at risk. We cannot afford to let that happen. We have to fight for our democracy. We have to fight to make sure that fairness, justice, and equality actually mean something and is translated through the courts.
Alfonso, I believe that virtually everything on your laundry list, perhaps with the exception of trans people in the military, but pretty much everything on your list is being fought using the rubric of freedom of religion. Do I have that right? And if so, how does this play out?
You're absolutely right. So all of us should be well aware that our Constitution provides protections for individuals who are engaged in religious-related activities, meaning there's a separation between church and state. The federal government cannot pass a law that infringes or in any way sort of affects your ability to exercise or participate in your religion. What some anti-equality forces have been trying to do is effectively say, oh, yes, we understand we have those protections under the Constitution, but we don't have sufficient protection. So I, as a bakery store owner, should have the right to deny any types of services to an LGBTQ couple because they offend my religion. If I'm running an adoption care agency or even a foster care agency with state dollars, I should have the right to deny an LGBTQ couple or a single woman or a religious minority the ability to serve as a foster parent or an adoptive parent because it actually offends my religion. This issue is turning the Constitution on its head. Yes, you have the right to exercise your religion, but what you don't have is the right to essentially deny basic rights and protections to other people when you engage in services in the public sphere. That's where the distinction is. When you open up your doors and you say, I'm going to provide services to the public, you can't say, I'm going to deny you those services because you're black, or because you're transgender, or because you're bisexual, or because you're disabled. You can't do that. And that's essentially what anti-equality forces are trying to do.
We have on the court right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we had, prior to the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 3 people who were Jewish and 6 people who were Catholic. And that all of the Catholics were essentially fundamentalist Catholics. And that, first of all, do I have my numbers right here, Alfonso?
I think you're right. With the passage of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we of course lost one. But
right,
yes.
Right. And in Judaism, there's a long history of separating religion from state, in part because Jews have historically been persecuted by pretty much every state that's ever come along, arguably with the exception of Israel. But there's also a long history in Catholicism of the state and the religion being the same thing. I mean, the Catholic Church ran Europe for 1,300 years or longer. So what is the status? I mean, right now, I'm assuming that all 5 Catholics on the court. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because Sonia Sotomayor is one of those Catholics. So. Yeah, Sotomayor. So you've got, I believe the 4 right-wing Catholics are all of the opinion that religion should be something that impinges on governance, whereas the 2 Jews and the 1 progressive Catholic would say no. Do I have that right? And how might an additional right-wing Catholic on the court change all this? Or is this, or am I just being way out of here in space with even talking about this way?
No, you're not. You're not. I mean, I without framing this with a huge, broad brush, I think it is fair to say, which is what you're suggesting, that we do have to be extremely concerned about individual rights and individual liberties suffering with some who are misinterpreting the full scope of religious liberty. Religious liberty does exist. No one is denying that, but it cannot exist to the detriment of individual rights. And that is what we're focused on. With another Supreme Court justice who believes that individual rights should succumb to religious liberty, we will lose many of the protections we currently have today. And we all have to be concerned about that. Remember that religion has been used in the past to justify colonization. Religion has been used in the past to deny black people the ability to actually participate in their religion. Religion was used in the past to justify, in certain parts of this country, slavery. So we know that religion can be used for bad. We know that people can interpret religion in a way to deny fundamental rights to individuals in this country. And we have to make sure that when we talk about the Constitution, when we talk about the Supreme Court, we have to make sure that individual rights and individual liberties are upheld. We're not in any way going to infringe on anyone's religious rights, but if you engage in the public domain and provide services to the public, you can't say to me as a black man, and I also happen to be gay, that you will deny me services if I'm gay, but you will provide me services if I'm black. We have to make sure that individual liberties are protected. So your point of highlighting, if we have a Supreme Court justice who is a very conservative Supreme Court justice and interprets the law in such a way that it infringes on our individual liberties, we will lose a lot of the protections we currently have. All of us should be concerned about health care. All of us should be concerned about individual rights. All of us arguably should be concerned about climate change. All of us should be concerned about voting rights. Those things are important to our democracy, and that's what we're fighting for.
Yeah, amen. And fighting the good fight. We're talking with Alfonso David, the president of the Human Rights Campaign. Alfonso, we have about 20 seconds left. What would you recommend we be doing?
We need everyone to vote. We need everyone to contact their elected officials and tell them, do not vote on a nominee. The next president should be responsible for that action.
Amen. Okay. Alfonso David, president of the Human Rights Campaign. HRC.org is the website. Alfonso David, or at HRC, the Twitter handles. Alfonso, thanks so much for dropping by. It's always great talking with you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. We'll be back. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, exposing the con in conservatives. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with your calls right after this. And welcome back. Tim in Aloha, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching.
There's a pretty simple explanation of this. For everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has fought for her life and in terms of justice and so forth, that's in jeopardy now. Okay, it's as simple as that. With the Trump administration may be able to pull off, seeing the fact that Barr and McConnell are in complete control. It is right now with Trump. And what they could actually do is get somebody in there that could literally destroy everything she worked for her whole life. That's the scary part. What's going on right now, and there isn't enough information about that going out to the general public. What she should have done when the Obama administration was literally in control of the Senate, the House, and the presidency was went up to Obama and said, "Look, get somebody to replace me," because she was even in ill health in that era. So she basically gets in there as ill as she can be, and is jeopardizing generations possibly with what they can do to a Supreme Court nominee. It's scary stuff, you know. And ultimately, what we really need is a pragmatic, scientific, atheistic approach to the world's problems. Otherwise, we're just putting Band-Aids on stuff. It's as simple as that, you know.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, Tim. Spot on. Thanks a lot for the call. Patricia in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Patricia, what's up? Patricia? Okay, I'm going to put Patricia on hold. She's on line one, Joyce. Mike in Goose Creek, South Carolina. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hi. I'm calling because I think Lindsey Graham has just everything he has done. He says one thing one time, and then he goes just the opposite. He needs to be replaced. And like the one person said a few calls back, Jamie Harrison is running neck and neck with Lindsey Graham, and we need to elect Jamie Harrison.
Yeah, he's a good man. He understands the issues. He, I have absolutely nothing but good stuff to say about Jamie Harrison. Amen, Mike. And I realize not everybody can afford $50, but, if you can help out Jamie Harrison, there's a lot of ways to do it. And you get over to his website, and his name is not spelled, it's spelled Jamie, I
believe.
Or Jamie. Okay, you're sure of that?
I'm almost positive. And I have a sign in my yard for him to vote for him.
Uh-huh.
But Lindsey Graham Lindsey Graham everything he's done lately is terrible. And him saying that under no circumstances would he vote for another $60 a month for unemployment. I mean, he just put that terribly, and he needs to be defeated. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mike. Thank you very much for the call. I just checked his website, by the way. It's spelled Jaime, Harrison.com. And, now that I'm on the website, I think I'll leave it here. And when I get off the air, I'll kick a few bucks over there. Anyhow, we'll continue our conversation with you. Picking up on your phone calls right after this. Stick around. The Hidden History of Monopoly tells how Robert Bork, that guy from the Reagan era, transformed corporate America and destroyed the American dream. Our video for our supporters of our program this week that's available over at thomhartmann.com talks about the radical idea of universal health care. What countries in the world might actually have universal health care, something that, according to Republicans, we're just not smart enough or competent enough or whatever. It's too radical an idea, They include Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Chile, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Israel, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, Portugal, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. So why can't we do it here? Well, because you've got an entire political party, the Republican Party, and a few Democrats who are wholly owned subsidiaries of the health insurance industry. And you got a health insurance industry that's paying its CEOs millions, in one case, United Healthcare, billions, or billion. And so, gridlock. Anyhow, it's over at thomhartmann.com. Deductible may apply. Welcome back. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Well, let me start with this quote, and you can be guessing who said this. The generally accepted notion that the court can only hear roughly 150 cases a year each term gives the same sense of assurance as when the court adjourns in July and the Constitution is safe for the summer. That quote on
sounds like
April 19, 1983 was from your Chief Justice, John Roberts.
John Roberts,
so
okay.
The point is that he thinks that when the court doesn't hear cases, the Constitution is safe. And he says 150 cases was what the court heard in the 1980s. This year, the court heard 130 cases. So now, with a 6-3 conservative majority, people understand that it takes 4 justices to hear a case, to signal that they would like to hear a case. The conservative court can now shut out the liberal agenda by just saying we don't want to hear it. And now that Trump has sacked the lower courts, the lower federal courts, the district and circuit courts, those rulings will stand. So the solution I will propose once again, since Joyce said I've already said this, is to have a 15-seat court, 15-member court, but each case will still only have 9 justices, and the justices will be randomly assigned. And now the court can hear, 2/3 more. So 2/3 more than 130 is somewhere about 225 to 250 cases a year. We have a country of 330 million people. Thousands, tens of thousands of cases are brought to federal court each year. And for them to focus just on God, gays, guns, and abortion on the one hand, and then sneakily, the cases you don't hear about, sneakily give their decisions on handing America over to the corporations is what's going to happen when you have a 6-3 court, and they can just choose to hear the ones they know they're going to win.
Yeah. How if we went to 15 members, I mentioned this earlier, and I suggested something like with the circuit courts where you can get a 3-judge panel. But what happens when somebody says, okay, I don't like, 9 judges ruled against me. I don't like that. I want the entire court to hear the case. Are you suggesting that you still have that, what is it called, en banc appeals?
No, I would not have en banc in that case because the thing is that even if you made the standard tougher, that instead of 4 out of 9 justices hearing it, you made it 7 out of 15, that 4 to 9 is 44.4% of the court, but 7 out of 15 is 46.6. That's the tougher standard. And so the court is wanting to hear this case. And you have 9. And these justices, see, what will happen is over time, the court will turn over, and it will be actually a much more fair representation of the political landscape at the time. We know that, you see, it's like COVID. Is a weekend, the deaths don't come until, a month or 6 weeks or 2 months later. Right now we have the Donald Trump court. It's the American populace and the electorate will have long since moved on from Donald Trump, but his politics will be seen in the court for generations to come. If the court were 15 and it heard 9 at a time, the court would turn over and you'd have a more immediate reflection of where the country is. It wouldn't be this, way behind reflection of the Ronald Reagan era going up even into the Ronald Reagan era went up into the, 2010 and beyond. I mean, we just lost Scalia in 2016 and Kennedy just retired last year. That's too long.
I agree.
If you had
term limits could do that
over
as well.
More frequently.
Yep.
It would turn over more frequently.
Paul, I endorse your idea. I think that we'll see how it shakes out, but I endorse your idea. Paul, thank you for the call. Alejandro in Miami. Hey, Alejandro, what's up?
Hello, Tom. Nice to talk to you again. I'm calling because I would like to know what are your thoughts on, the Democrats just trying to impeach Donald Trump again. I mean, how many more abuses is it going to take? We're getting whipped and battered over here with Trump's unconstitutional abuses of power. The Ukraine. It's like he didn't learn anything from Ukraine, despite what the Republicans.
Oh, he did learn something. He learned he can get away with stuff.
Well, that's the wrong lesson he learned.
Yeah.
Right, but I think actually the Democrats have a strong case to impeach him just on the coronavirus response. And obviously, he knew how bad it was going to be. In February.
Absolutely, and I guarantee you, if the shoe was on the other foot, the Republicans, instead of screaming about Hillary Clinton's emails, would be screaming about Hillary Clinton, letting the coronavirus run wild and kill 200,000 Americans. That's like 3 jetliners falling out of the sky every single day for the last 200 days, basically. And, because we're hitting 200,000 right now. It's just insane. Alejandro, I think it would be a good thing. I think it would be an important thing. I think if you had a Democratic president, the Republicans would be doing it right now. But I'm not counting on the Democrats to do it. We just have to vote. We have to get more progressives in office, and we need to play hardball, real political hardball. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you. So get out there, get active, tag you're it. And be good to yourself and the people around you. Take a break from time to time. Relax, take a walk, enjoy yourself. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
There's a short circuit in the political convictions of some progressive-minded voters these days. While big majorities are making clear that they need and want bold, transformative changes in today's rigged system, many of them are not voting that way in this year's Democratic
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company. More information at carshield.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Boll and Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at Boll, B-O-L-L, and branch.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, TEEF, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!